Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, singer Doogie White. He has a new album with his band Doogie White La Paz called Shut Up And Rawk. We also talk about Michael Schenker and Temple of Rock with their new album Live in Madrid that comes out later this spring. And we look back on Doogie's career, including Yngwie Malmsteen, but more specifically his time with Ritchie Blackmore and Rainbow. Lots of good news there and good stories with that. And so with that, and no further ado, here is the one, the only, Doogie White. We are speaking with singer Doogie White. Doogie, a great pleasure. You have, you've got your hand in sort of every pie of rock of the last 30 years.
Well, you know, I'm a working musician, and as a working musician, I have to take the opportunities when they arise. I enjoy what I do. Sometimes I do things that are a bit different and a bit off the wall, and sometimes I do things for people just because they ask me. If I get paid for it, that's all the better. But I'm just following the dream that I had when I was 15 years old and heard Deep Purple for the first time. That's all that I've ever been doing.
Yeah, and that's the way to do it. So, listen, there is so much to go over, from Malmsteen to Rainbow to your solo stuff to Michael Schenker to the stuff you did with Mendoza and Appice. But let's start with your new project, Doogie White La Paz, Shut Up And Rawk, new album. Just talk to me a little bit about the album. I mean, it's the third one essentially in the last 5 or 6 years.
La Paz was the first band
Right.
I ever really was a part of. I mean, I'd been in cover bands before, and Chick McSherry, who's the guitar player and main writer, you know, my writing partner in La Paz, he was the hot shot guitar kid going round when we were in the sort of early 80s, and I was the go-to singer guy. And what Chick did was, I mean, it was inevitable that we were going to play together because I'd been through a whole load of guitar players and he'd been through a whole load of singers, and then our paths crossed and we just got on well. He saw something in me, and he took this really raw product, this really raw singer who was, I was very undisciplined, and he just took it and he said, look, this is what we need to do. And so he took me and sort of calmed me down and got me to focus, because I had never really had any focus in what I was doing. I was just a singer that got up and just sang other people's songs, occasionally wrote something with somebody else, and just enjoyed myself. Chick sort of got a more professional side of me and sort of worked it. And we've been friends. I mean, everybody in La Paz has been friends since the mid-'80s. With La Paz in the 80s, we would go out and we would play gigs at American naval bases based in Scotland. We would play every weekend. We'd be playing Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday to get enough money to allow us to go into the studio to record, with the dream of getting a recording contract. It was different days then. We recorded on 8 tracks, or if the money would stretch to a 16 track, but it was all done over 2 or 3 days rather than being in the studio for a month or whatever. So that's kind of how we did that. The record deal never came, and we had really tapped every avenue we could. So the band had just folded. I got an offer from Midnight Blue in London to come down and join them, and so we just wound up La Paz. But we remained friends all through that period of time. And it wasn't until maybe 2000, 2008 when I was invited to do a concert in Glasgow to celebrate the first anniversary of a Scottish rock radio station, that Chick and I got back together. And we decided then that we would go into the studio, take the money that we had, and go into the studio and re-record the best of the live set that we had for our own amusement, because we only had 8-track demos from back then. So then that happened, and we recorded it, and Metal Mind Productions, who's my record label and Tank's record label, because I was with Tank at the time, heard the material and offered La Paz a deal. So we had to go away and write 4 new songs. So then that became the first album, Granite. And then Chick, who's always a man with a project, he has business interests all over the world, whether he's in Mexico or America or Russia or wherever he happens to be. He's a published author. He just has to have something to do. And so he wrote another album and said, here, I've written another album. So that's how we got onto this rolling road that is what La Paz is doing now. And it's only Doogie White and La Paz because my name is better known than the La Paz name. So it was a record company idea that it would be done as a promotion like that, because if it was just La Paz, people go, who's that? They say it's Doogie White and La Paz, they go, who's that? And La Paz.
Right. Well, there is something to be said about brand, right, and a brand name, and you've reached the brand name part. Is this something now that you've done Granite and The Dark and the Light, and of course this one, Shut Up and Rawk, is that it, or is this another vehicle when you're not doing Temple of Rock, you're not doing some of the other things, or sort of what do you see as the future for, and we'll call it Doogie White and La Paz, and not just La Paz?
Yeah, well, it really has just been a labour of love for us all. It's very difficult to get. I haven't been in the same room with the guys since February 2014, because, as I said, Chick's got business interests all over the world. He's travelling. I'm on the road with Schenker or wherever I happen to be. The drummer Paul McManus is also the drummer in another Scottish band called Gun. So he's travelling, and Andy Mason, the keyboard player, is a businessman who travels the world as well. So to get us all together at any given point to plan something takes months when anybody actually has time off. So we're having a launch party for the album next Thursday, which is the last day of March. And that's taken nearly 4 months for us to actually settle on a date when we were all going to be in the country. And so we have rehearsals for 3 days next week, because we're going to go up and we're going to play 3 tracks from Granite, and 3 tracks from The Dark and the Light, and 3 or 4 tracks from Shut Up and Rawk. So it's just, where it can go, I don't know. There's not enough touring opportunities for us to go and put a tour together, because there are so many bands touring now, and people have limited resources to be able to come and see everybody they want to see. When we did the last set of La Paz gigs, what we did was, when we got together, we did maybe half a dozen shows, and also with the money that we had left over from the money from Granite, we gave that to a charity in Mexico for the town of La Paz in Mexico, which Chick actually has business interests in. And what that charity does is it keeps the kids away from being drug runners or child prostitutes or whatever, and it gets them into school. And if they go to school, then they can join the football teams or the soccer teams. So we sponsored a boys under 10 team and a girls under 10 team and an under 14 team for either sex. So that's what that money went for from the first Granite album. And then, of course, recording budgets are not very big. Recording costs cost the same as they've always cost. So we haven't been able to do that with The Dark and the Light or with Shut Up and Rawk, because all that money's been taken up in trying to make the albums as best as they can. But any profits we make from any shows we do always go to this charity.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. Now,
and even at this launch thing that we're having, I mean, we've hired the venue, and we've invited 300 of our closest friends, and they're going to come in, and the kind of line is, it costs you nothing to get in, but it's going to cost you £5 to get out. So we could make £500, £600, which again will go to will go to this charity in La Paz in Mexico.
That's wonderful. Listen, there's so much to talk. So where do we start? Let's continue with the recent Michael Schenker's Temple of Rock, Bridge the Gap, Spirit on a Mission. 2 fantastic albums. Live in Europe was great, but you've got Live in Madrid coming out
yes.
in April for Japan and I think May for the rest of the world. Talk to me about Michael Schenker and joining the band. I get a sense now that Francis Buchholz is there and Herman is there. It's not just Michael and some guys. It seems to be a band now. Is that the correct assessment?
Well, I think that that is true. I mean, it's a great lineup of a band. We all enjoy each other's company. We all enjoy each other's musicianship on stage. We're able to pull from the Scorpions well, from the UFO well, from the MSG well as playing live 5 or 6 songs from our own material in an hour and a half, an hour and 40-minute set. So that's great. It's a band as long as the guitar player stays. I mean, if the guitar player leaves, we don't have a band. That's pretty much it. But it's a band in that, we're all involved pretty much in the kind of decisions that we make. And we're all just we're happy to be doing it. I mean, it's exciting because there's no nonsense. We all know why we're there. We're there for that hour and a half or hour and 45 minutes on the stage to give the audience the best time that we can. With the live DVD that's coming out, we shot that in Madrid because the audiences are crazy in Madrid. And I flew into Germany on the 2nd of January to start editing it. So I spent time there editing the DVD to get it as fast-paced, to try and capture the intensity and the excitement of a Temple of Rock show, because the initial cut of it was very slow and ponderous, and it had a lot of crossfades and a lot of things that just slowed the whole, didn't give the excitement of what the band is live. So Michael phoned me up and he says, "Can you go over there and edit this?" So I went over and sat with the guy that had shot it, and we just sat and we made it a very fast cut, exciting, high energy show. So hopefully it gives the audiences who haven't seen us, in Canada, for instance, we didn't make it the last time because I was sick as a dog, and in other places in America and in other territories where promoters will be able to see us as well and say, well, this is a good live band, and then they'll be able to come in and make offers for tours, which can then allow us to go back out and play more again. Because I live for the live work. I mean, I make albums so that I can get out and play these songs live. Although I've done lots of albums that haven't been able to be played live, my main mission is to get out there and play live.
Yeah, and of course you definitely should. Is Temple of Rock, though, your main bread and butter right now? Or is that your focus, or do you have other projects other than La Paz that you might go out and do? Well,
we're taking 2016 off from Temple of Rock because we've been on the road. We started in 2014 in America, and we finished up in Norway in February 2016. So we've been on the road for 2 years. We've done two North American tours. We've done 2 tours of Japan. We've been to South America. We've done all the summer festivals over the last 3 years. We've done 3 or 4 tours around Europe, one of Russia. So we've pretty much been everywhere that we've been invited to play. So it's time to give the promoters and the audience and the band a little break for this coming year, where we'll probably get together and record a new album for release in 2017. So to answer your question, is I'm a working musician, so that's what I do. The money's not there now to be able to go out and put petrol in the Ferrari or the Aston Martin and drive it around. You have to keep working, because as soon as you're not working, then you're not earning, and then
you're not eating.
It's like any other job. You have the dream at the beginning that this is going to be what it's like, and the reality is that so long as you keep enjoying what you're doing, Then there's only one Iron Maiden in the world. There's only one Metallica in the world. One Judas Priest. We can all dream about attaining that level of success, but the reality is most of us will never get that. So you work within the parameters of what you've got, and still, even at the age of 56, that you hope that one day you'll be headlining your own stadium tour. But the reality is that I have to keep working. So I'll do, if the project's interesting enough, I'll go and do it.
You go do it.
I mean, I've just finished an album with a band and a short tour stint with a band called Demon's Eye. Now, Demon's Eye started life as a Deep Purple tribute band, and I got called in to replace Glenn Hughes when Glenn was ill, and I've been a sort of regular in their revolving door of singers for a while now, and we've actually written and recorded 2 albums together, and they're very, very good and very strong. And so when we go out, we play a mixture of Rainbow stuff, Deep Purple stuff, and also a strong, healthy take on the Demon's Eye songs. And again, it was an album that we wrote, and going out and playing it live is when it really comes to life for me. That's when my enjoyment is because if you're in the studio, you're laying it down in a very sterile environment, and it's not until you take those songs to the live arena that they take really a good shape and a good form. And it's not like the old days where you could go out and you would jam these ideas out on stage, because everybody now just films everything, so it's all up on YouTube. It's all up on YouTube before you've got a chance to do anything really. So you don't get that experimentation. So
yeah, it's up on YouTube before you even get to hit the showers after the show.
Absolutely.
1995, Stranger in Us All, the Rainbow album that you were on, and you mentioned that there was one Iron Maiden and one Metallica. There were many rainbows.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that album, because fans seem to revere it. They seem to love it. It was 1995 though, so it was tough to get a hard rock album going in that, or even a rock album going in that day and age. What are your memories of that album, and how do you think it holds up now?
Well, my memory, what you have to understand is that Ritchie Blackmore was and remains my favourite guitar player. And Deep Purple and all its offshoots, whether it be Gillan or Whitesnake or Rainbow and its many incarnations, were my favourite bands. And from 15, when I first heard those bands, all I wanted to do was sing with Ritchie Blackmore. So you can imagine that some 20 years later or some 19 years later, to actually be invited by the man himself to join his band, to write songs with him, to share a stage with him, and to play these songs that I had loved for so long was an absolute dream come true for me. I mean, I woke up most days laughing my head off at what a lucky guy I was to do that. And we worked hard, and that whole recording process of the album was hard work because of the environment we were in. It was in upstate, it was in Massachusetts, and and it was minus 39, minus 40 some nights. I mean, we were snowed in for months, which was good for work, but not much else. And people do like the album, but like you say, it was right at the height of grunge. The magazines and all these people had all gone off to whatever the trendy, because they're a business, they're selling magazines, so they're appealing to the audience. And maybe the rock music fans were growing their children at the time. They've all come back now, and there's a great heavy rock scene, especially here in Europe. I don't know what it's like so much over the other side of the pond, but certainly here in Europe, there's a great love for that classic rock sound. And with Uriah Heep and NASA still doing the rounds, and UFO and Temple of Rock and What the Hoople, and Bad Company, all these great bands that were from the 70s are still all there, and all still doing well. So how Stranger in Us All stands up in among the other Rainbow albums or the other lineups of the band is not really for me to say. I just know from a personal point of view, I really enjoyed my time with the band, It started to go downhill when new management came in, and it became more cottage industry than professionally run. And little niggles started to come in that didn't need to be there. But those are the kind of things that's a well-trodden path, shall I say.
Right. Well, if I may, because you've been very tight-lipped about what happened back then, you've sort of said, hey, it's nobody's business, and I'm not going to talk about this. And you've mentioned one or two things. Were there any regrets in and how it ended and in your departure? And was it just a financial thing, or was it something more that said, all right, we need to just call it a day and move on?
Well, it's like any other. Ritchie's got a history of doing this, so while it was expected, it was still unexpected.
Right, it's going to happen to them, but not us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I knew it was going to happen. You could see the cracks beginning to appear, but it had run its course. I mean, when we finished the American tour, Ritchie told me that he would be doing Candy's album, then we would be getting Rainbow back together the following January to start writing a new album. Things happened at the last festival that we did that I felt were that he wouldn't talk to me. He told me that his management, she was his right-hand man, and she would speak on his behalf, and it was unreasonable, and I felt it was unreasonable, and I just felt that I had to go. There was nothing that could be done. There was nothing that could be done about it. I mean, it wasn't a personal fallout between Ritchie and I. It was purely a business thing that he wasn't prepared to stand up and say this is wrong. So I had no choice but to say, well, I can't be part of this. Now, subsequently, Ritchie's been very good to me when that same management would not deal with me with regards to things that were contractually obligated. And I wrote to Ritchie, and I hand wrote to Ritchie, and I said, look, here's the deal. And he dealt with it, and so I've got no beef or gripe with Ritchie at all. He took me and put me on an international stage. He allowed me the freedom and of my own self-expression of what I wanted to do. And what you have to remember is I did, as a fan of the band, I tried to bring to the band what I would want to see and hear. I didn't want it to be the more commercially viable version that Joe and Ritchie created together.
Right.
Because I mean, Joe took a lot of stick for that, but he was doing that under Ritchie's guidance as well.
Right.
So, but what I said to Ritchie was, when we had dinner that first night, he said, well, what kind of album would you like to make with me? And I said, a cross between Rainbow and Burn. And that was it. That was the selling point. But of course, when we got into the writing situation, he blinked, because we were doing the heavier stuff, the darker stuff. But he blinked and felt he needed a single for the American market. And the irony of that is that he took Ariel as the song, which was probably the most unsingle of the entire album.
And of course, the other irony is that you were trying to get a single for the American market in 1995, and
yes, I know.
There was no possibility of having a single in America in 1995. As a fan of Rainbow, from the very beginning, you had 15, 20 years of being this fan before you became a band member. Is there a regret or some kind of disappointment in being in the band and then it not just being Nirvana? It turns into business and it turns into dollars and. That's not what I'm saying at all. I loved every single moment I was in that band, even that last night when Ritchie. And I don't know if I can say this in your radio show, but
Ritchie's final words to me were, "If you don't like it, you can fuck off." So I did. Now, I had no regrets about that, any of that. How could I regret it? I played maybe 100 shows with the guy. Maybe not as many as that. It felt like 100. Because it was so exciting, and we played some brilliant shows, and we did great tours, and I got to watch him and hear him play guitar every night.
Yeah, that's exciting.
I learned from that. The dream can still be the dream, but you have to be business minded, or you end up, either you can end up being misused and mistreated, or you can end up with nothing at all. So I enjoyed my time with Ritchie. I'm sorry it didn't continue, and now he's got a new version of the band together, albeit he should, in order to make it more authentic, he should really record music with them. Or he's just playing with another bunch of musicians. I mean, they're playing other people's songs. Now, I'm guilty of playing other people's songs, but that's what it is. In order for it to be taken and to be put up beside Ronnie's version, or Graham's or Joe's, he needs to record music with these guys and their own music, Because Coverdale does that with every version of Whitesnake. He changes a main player in the band, the guitar player. He records an album with them, writes with them, records an album with them, and then he goes out and does it. And that's me speaking as a fan. That's not me speaking as a bitter, twisted ex-employee or ex-member of the band, because I'm not that. I'm still a fan, and I wish this lineup all the success.
Yeah, and we can take a positive out of it, because being in Rainbow, or Ritchie Blackmore's Rainbow, and we spoke about brand before, it did create a brand name. It made Doogie White a name that other bands would look at and fans would look at and say, hey, who is that guy? He's in Rainbow. So it might not have worked out where you stayed with him for 15 years, but part of your allure is from there.
Yeah, of course. And that's what I was saying earlier. I'm always grateful to him for taking the chance on the Little Scotsman to be able to go out there and to do this. Now because he'd never seen me on a stage, so he just said, let's see what happens, and gave me free rein to do whatever I liked, and so it's allowed me to have a longer career than I possibly would have had because of my association with him. That's nothing to be regretful or sad about. That's a great thing.
I fully agreed. And let me move over to Yngwie Malmsteen, but I'll finish with this on Rainbow or Ritchie. When he announced the shows this summer, and unless I'm mistaken, there's only 2 at this point. 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Were you sort of hoping that your phone was going to ring, or did that first phone call? Did you go, "Oh, is that him?" Like, were you secretly hoping that he would have called you?
I think, judging by the things that he has indicated in the press, he doesn't even mention my name in the press. So I think that whatever stick he has up his ass about me is still there.
Which is unfortunate.
For whatever reason that is. I don't know what it is. We didn't part as enemies. We haven't spoken in 20 years. He's been very good to me subsequently with sorting out publishing and sorting out various things that his management wouldn't, as I said earlier. So I really didn't expect the call. And why would I jump ship from something that I've built up with Michael Schenker to go to be a lackey for Ritchie Blackmore?
True, fair enough.
Because there's no point in looking backwards, because there's nothing positive. There would be nothing positive in that, because at a whim, he could just go, I'm not doing this. 3 shows. I'm not going to sacrifice all the work that I've built up in 4 years with Michael Schenker for 3 shows with Ritchie. I mean, it wouldn't happen. So I wasn't expecting the call. Was I disappointed it didn't come? No, not really.
No, not really. Now, we said we were going to do 20 minutes. We're way over that. So let me just... it always happens with me. I'm good at talking. When we... quickly talk to me about Yngwie Malmsteen. I've known the keyboardist Derek Sherinian for many years, and he was in the lineup that you were in.
Yes.
And I've had some entertaining encounters with Yngwie, from being in the pit at the Roseland in New York, and he slapped my camera and said, no pictures, even though we had photo passes, to him phoning me at the house saying, the next time you're in Malmo, Sweden, we'll go for pizza. So, you know, what was it like for you? Because he is another guitar genius, for the lack of a better word. What was that like for you, and also for you as a vocalist? Because I'm assuming you had to give way with your vocals somewhat to let the guitar be the hero in the whole thing.
Well, Albert, quite frankly, I didn't really know much about Yngwie, other than his Joe Lynn Turner stuff, because it was guitar playing that I didn't understand. But when we bumped into each other at one of his shows, I was there as a guest of Mark Bowles. And Mark was going to be leaving, and Yngwie said, "Oh, you should come and sing with me." And I said, "That's a great idea." So I signed up with Yngwie. I knew what I was signing up to. You know, I knew that he was going to be producing it. I knew he was going to be writing everything. All I had to do was to stand on the stage and sing until he started playing guitar, and then I'd just get out the road. So I knew perfectly well what I was doing, and it wasn't encroaching in my my creativeness, because I had signed up to do this.
Right.
Had he said, "Let's write an album together," and then had not let me do that, that would have been a different situation. And I stayed with him for 6.5 years, and they were great times. I mean, there were some silly times as well, but there were some brilliant times with him. He's a monster guitar player, and I came to appreciate more what he does when I watch him playing, and when I listen to him when I was actually in his band. And we got on really, really well. But as is Yngwie's way, and he wants to make a change to the style of direction of music that he's doing, the singer gets the axe.
Right.
That's what happens. So then he got Ripper in, and Ripper did 2 albums with him and a couple of tours. And now Yngwie's decided that him singing himself would probably be better than having a singer in. So, but it's all about him, and so long as you're aware and you understand that that's what it is, I just leave. Whenever I work with these guys, I just take my ego and I give it to my wife, and I leave it in a wee bag, and I pick it up when I come home, because there's no point in having an ego around these guys. There's not enough room on the stage.
And of course, you are coming into their situation, and you
Absolutely.
have to be respectful of that. If you come in with the attitude like, "Here's the singer, and you're going to do what I say," you're not going to get a lot of gigs, because that's going to get around the business, and people are going to say, "Don't hire him; he's a pain in the ass." So
yeah, well, I'm not a band leader, but I'm a good second in command. I'm good. I'm good at that, and I like to think that I'm good with an audience, and that I can hold a tune, and that I can because I was the first singer that Yngwie allowed to talk to the audience. He always spoke to them, and the first shows that we did, he was really ill, and he couldn't talk, so he said, "You do it." So I did it, and he liked it, because it's about getting the audience involved. It's about drawing the audience in and making them part of it, so that it's all one big unit. And breaking down those barriers between the band and the audience, but while still letting the people know that they're there to be entertained, and you're there to entertain them.
Yeah, and
so I had absolutely no problems with Yngwie at all.
And let me wrap this up here. You've been with Midnight Blue and Blackmore and Malmsteen and Cornerstone and Demon's Eye, Stardust Reverie, etc. Is there one moment, one era, one album that stands out to you as being, this was my summit? This is the one that says Doogie White at his best.
Well, I think the Human Stain album that I did with Cornerstone is. Hang on a second. Yes, I think the first Cornerstone album I wrote with Steen, which was Human Stain, I think that's a great album. The Rainbow albums obviously opened doors, and that was a big one. But we dropped the ball on a couple of songs in that, I really think. So maybe I just haven't done it yet. There's some great songs in the two Schenker albums I did as well. Lord of the Lost and Lonely is a great song. It comes across so brilliantly live, and I love that. So there's always little bits and pieces, but I don't know that there's one overall album that I would go, that's the one.
Right. Well, you know, I'm thinking Spirit on the Mission is pretty much up there, and of course the new Shut Up and Rawk by Yngwie La Paz, but very much looking forward to the live in Madrid, because I spoke to Herman Rarebell just yesterday, and he was telling me that it was one of his best ever performances. The crowd was crazy, the band was on fire, so when that comes out, I'm very much looking forward to hearing it. And because you know you got three Scorpions and you singing. Yeah, sounds like it's a winning combination.
Yeah, and of course we've got Wayne Finley in there, who doesn't get the credit he deserves, because he's the glue that's held this all together, with his keyboard playing and his guitar playing and his vocals and him just remembering where we are, because you know he's worked longer with Michael than if you put everybody together. If you put all Phil Mogg's time together, it's not as long as Wayne Finley. Gary Bart, take all the singers that have worked with Michael, put them all in a line, they haven't worked as long with Michael as Wayne Finley has. So Wayne's the glue that holds it all together. Michael's the creative genius that fires everybody's imaginations. And then you've got Herman and Francis, that you know any band would be happy if a rhythm section that solid and that understanding. You know, they're not the flashiest rhythm section in the world, you know, but my God, when they lay down a four on the floor, the sound is amazing.
Yeah, and I've got to say, and no disrespect to the other singers he's had, but for me personally, your name on the project and your vocals gave it the credibility that I went, yeah, I'm going to buy these albums. And I did. And it was because I saw Herman, Frank, and Doogie, and I went, those are guys that I can throw out some money to. No, I mean, of course, Michael, but, you know.
Well, I'll give you a wee Michael story. When Michael asked me to audition for the band, because I sang with him at the invitation of Chris Glenn when it was MSG, and I went down and sang with him, and then we ended up together at a festival for this guy in Sardinia, and Michael heard I was singing there, and he asked me if I would learn some MSG songs, so I did, and the lineup was Ian Pace, Chris Slade, Neil Murray, Don Airey, Ken Hensley, Michael, and me. So I was covering all these different songs. Michael said, I'd like you to audition for the band. And I turned up at the rehearsal studio, and it was only him, a Marshall and a Flying V, and me. And he said, this will be the weirdest audition you've ever done. And he just fired up the Flying V and said, right, we'll do Doctor Doctor. And he played the whole song with no band, just me and him. I mean, it was extraordinary. And he went, I just wanted to hear if you could actually do it, or whether the noise of the band was drowning out all your subtleties. But you've got all the subtleties, you've got all the notes, you've got all the attitude, you want the gig. I said, yeah. And that was how I landed the job.
Wow, that's a great story. And Doogie, thank you. A great pleasure. We'll definitely have to do a part 2 at some point.
Yeah. It took us a while to get there, but we got there.
We got there. Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thank you, man. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Cheers, bye-bye.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with singer Doogie White. Again, the new album is Shut Up and Rawk by Doogie White and La Paz. We've also got Michael Schenker's Temple of Rock with Live in Madrid that comes out later this spring. And if you haven't checked it out, Spirit on a Mission, the last album by Michael Schenker and the Temple of Rock. Great album. Most definitely worth checking out. And with that, check me out on Twitter at Mitch Lafon and the Facebook page One on One, Mitch Lafon. And as always, comme toujours, as we say in French. Merci, bonsoir. Thank you very much. Good night. And bye for now.